KBO betting show. My name is Andrew McInnis, joined by Dave Cokin. And yesterday, for some reason, I decided to say see you Monday to all of you. However, there is still one day left for us to handicap for the following day. It is Friday. We're handicapping for Saturday morning. Got an extra game for tomorrow morning because of a cancellation this morning. Dave, how are things? How you doing?
Okay. Did okay with the totals last night or this morning. Had one win and one push. The parlay that I mentioned in the show did not get there, however, as the NC Dinos were surprisingly upset in extra innings by the Heroes. Well-pitched game on both sides. Bit surprised to see that from the Heroes side, but it does happen. So we'll see what happens in the next game tonight. Extra innings, not my cup of tea as rule in baseball. It doesn't matter what league it is.
Yeah, I'm the same way with any sport. Overtime in hockey, I've been burnt a few times, that's for sure. And like you said, some great pitching on the other side. You know, we saw what we needed to see out of NC. Continue to see great pitching out of him. But the opposition, we saw some great pitching on there. And that's all we can really say is that, a 3-2 ball game going into extras, it's going to be a coin flip. And they came out on top. Good for them. But we'll get into the Dinos and how great they've done bouncing back, because they've been a great team off a loss. Not only that, but just they've also put up some numbers off a loss as well.
Yep. Now, one thing that I mentioned yesterday, and you're going to start to see more of this, discounting the Eagles, you're going to start to see more one-run games this league. Okay, the math just dictates that this is going to happen. And you saw a couple of them yesterday. Be careful with the runs lines unless the Eagles are involved, and they're obviously hopelessly awful. But you're starting to see closer games, and there has to be a correction to what was just a weird, fluky percentage of all these games being decided by two or more runs. I'm not going to say it's going to be all one-run games, but you're going to start to see more one-run games than we've seen in the first few weeks of the season, and you have to, I think, adjust accordingly as far as your wagering patterns are concerned. And maybe it'll be time to start looking, if you're going runs line, the less popular plus 1.5 route, which doesn't get as much play, but is actually the sharper play.
Definitely. We saw a few of them yesterday, and like you said, it's going to level out. I also think, just personally, that the more teams get to know each other, it's a very small league. And, I always compare it to the CFL as far as the numbers of teams. And, I've seen it so many times in the CFL where one time they're playing a home and home, one game, it's a blowout for one team. And then just the next week, it could be, settled by a field goal. So we're looking to see more of that moving forward. We're going to start with the first game here. Kia Tigers, SK Wyverns. I'm disappointed here, Dave. I ended up getting the push. I had the first 5 innings under the total, under 5. And I ended up getting the push there. So better than a loss. But I thought it was off to a pretty dang good start. And then it kind of slowed down a little bit on me, and then boom, just picked up a few runs. But I'll take the push there. I just want to point out this Kia Tigers team got 2, relatively decent pitchers on the mound, I thought. And I looked towards the full game under in this one, but we saw that number move quite a bit. And before I could really make up my mind, it moved a little bit. But I want to just take a look at the past couple of games here. I mean, 6 runs here for Kia this morning. We saw 8 in their loss against KT, and then 10 in their previous win against KT. We talked about them struggling on the road, and now all of a sudden we're starting to see some run support and some scoring from this team on the road. What are your thoughts here as they play SK in the second game of this series?
Well, I think it is a good pitching matchup with Im versus Moon. Both guys are in good form. Moon's been really solid in his last 2 starts, and Im, looking at his last 4 starts, he's averaging a solid 6 innings and only a couple of runs, actually 7 runs in that stretch. So they're in good form. The Tigers are still not a good offensive team on the road, and the Wyverns are not a good offensive team anywhere. So I think you can make a case that this is going to be a game where, at least for the first 6 innings, you've got a good chance of a pitching duel. And after that, who knows? The bullpens from one game to the next can be good or terrible. Wyverns bullpen was not great last night, which was part of the reason that game ended up on the number. There has been some betting support for the under. In this one, 9.5, the under is now juiced. So money is showing on that end of the total, and I would agree with that. I think that the pitchers have a chance to control things tonight.
Definitely. And like you said, look at these pitchers right now performing pretty well. And looking at him, it was 5.5 innings pitched, 1.69 ERA, 7 hits though. So it seems to me, ground ball. He's a ground ball pitcher. He's looking for ground balls, and his team's kind of taking care of it. So you look at those stats, but you also see the hits he's giving up. To me, that means that he's picking the right spots in the strike zone.
Well, he's going to give up hits because he's a pitch to contact guy.
Yeah.
Although he's actually got a good strikeout ratio this year, 28 strikeouts in 32 1/3 innings. But he throws strikes. He's only walked 4 batters all season. So this is a guy you got to go up there and be aggressive with because he's not going to walk you. He's not going to beat himself. And the flip side of it, by the way, is Moon has only walked 6 batters in his 32 innings. So you've got 2 guys with really good control. And that is absolutely one of the things you look for when sizing up totals. If you got 2 guys who don't beat themselves with walks, get a better chance of a game staying under the total. And certainly for those looking at the first 5, the total's 5. The over is actually juiced there. You can make a case that the under 5 in the first 5 innings might actually be the better value at this point.
I'd have to agree as well. Like you said, with the movement, if you like the first 5, like the pitchers, go ahead with the first 5 innings. I'm going to give out the Kia Tigers on just the money line here, minus 145 for the first game on the dock. Quick shout out to Michael King Crab. Stephen Lee says, finally able to watch us live. He's been watching both of us for years. We appreciate that. I know it's not as easy for everyone to join live, but it's always fun interacting with the chat box. So thanks so much. And yeah, I mean, Steven saying the Dinos screwed him. Well, it's the same thing that Dave said to me off air. They're bound to lose one eventually, and I'm sure they're going to bounce back, and they're obviously a pretty great team. So one loss doesn't shape a team. Kiwoom Heroes, NC Dinos, the aforementioned NC Dinos, game 2, and we talked about it off the get-go, so we won't really backtrack too much, Dave, but maybe just your thoughts on that game, and then we'll get with your thoughts before I go moving forward for game 2.
Well, the Dinos should bounce back here. They've done very well off a loss. They've only lost 2 in a row once all season. They're 6-1 off a loss. They've scored a lot of runs when coming off a loss, and the offense was very quiet in this morning's game. The pitching matchup in this one, you've got Han on the mound for the Heroes, and he is off 2 good starts. But bear in mind, he got whacked in his prior performance against this team, lasted only into the 5th inning, gave up 7 hits, 6 runs, 5 of those earned, had control problems in that game as well. And he's got to watch out for that here. His control's been pretty good for the most part. In fact, that was his worst walk performance of the season. He walked 4 and 4 2/3 innings. For the rest of the season, outside of that, he's only walked 6 batters in 28 innings. So he needs to throw strikes. Otherwise, he's going to put men on base and be in a jam. As for the Dinos, they said lead of the mound. He's been okay. I think the ERA is a little bit phony on him. FIP is about a run higher than that, but all he's got to do is pitch halfway decent ball, and he should be fine. He's off his best performance of the season, which is positive. He had a good outing against the Heroes earlier, lasting into the 7th inning, giving up just 6 hits and 2 runs. Big favorite here, the Dinos, and I certainly can't argue against that. They should win this game.
Yeah, I've locked in the over 6.5 team total for this Dinos team. Freddie Mills with a great stat here. NC great off bouncing back. They have scored less than 4 runs in 8 games on the season, and in those games they followed it up, averaging over 8 runs per game. So this is a team that not only puts up runs, but after a loss, they have recovered quick. And, the odds are certainly reflecting that. We look at this. You said they're pretty hefty favorites.
Yeah, not that bad, really.
Yeah.
165, 170.
Yeah.
This would have been the type of game where prior to this week, I would have said, okay, this is a perfect -1 spot where you lay half the bet on the money line and half the bet on the runs line, which is actually small plus. I think it's plus 105. But I'm going to stick with my belief that you're going to start seeing closer games in this league. And so I can still make a case for -1 because if they win by 1, at least you get your money back. But I would not run to the window with just a runs line bet here.
Yeah, I think Lee's ERA is definitely inflated just off that one bad game against SK. He's actually coming off a pretty good outing. So I'm going to go ahead here and grab NC. Will it be tied to a parlay? Possibly. But also just a reminder to everybody out there, I can't sit here and guide someone through a live bet. But, yesterday I was able to get a great number with Doosan during the game, and if you're watching the game, which, a lot of you probably should be, you don't have to, but if you're betting on a sport, maybe if you can catch the game, I know these are tough times for a lot of us, in the mornings to watch. You can get a team at a way better price. Catch the team that you like down one run. All of a sudden, you're getting a way better odds than you would have if you bet them pregame, things like that. But for the purpose of the show, I am on the over 6.5 team total for the NC Dinos. Johnny here saying Dinos team total now 5.5. Yeah, I mean, whatever number you want to grab it at. It seems like people are giving some respect to the Kiwoom pitching staff. So I'm not sure, what book you're betting at, but this isn't really the show to mention books. So Lotte Giants, LG Twins. Interesting looking at this one. I mean, I don't really know what to think with this twin team right now. But if we look at what we saw yesterday, it was a pretty low scoring, and I'm disappointed in myself to leave that off the card. I left that actually off my card. I talked about it on the show with you, and rightfully so. We saw two pretty quality pitchers get the job done, and pitch up some pretty good games. So now in this one here, though, we're possibly seeing some different matchups. I mean, we're seeing one pitcher, Park, with a 5.4 ERA, and then Cha from the LG Twins with a 4-2 record, but he hasn't looked too great, but he's coming off a pretty good start. So, if we're going to talk about recency bias, looking at the start that Shaw's coming off of against Kiwoom, I might take a look here at LG to get the job done at a pretty fairly good number. And just like Dave's talking about getting off those -1.5s, around that -160 number, I'm going to be comfortable with it to go ahead here with that. I mean, for me right now, my plan, guys, is going to be to develop a certain number with each team. Like, I think that as far as the -1.5 strategy goes, if I'm taking NC, I'm probably going to take them. Just based off the price you're going to get with them anyway. I'm going to take them on the run line, whether it's with a parlay or not. But with this Twins team, getting them at -160, I'm comfortable enough to use that number and look at Shaw's most recent outing and ride them right now because it's important to me to see. No matter what sport it is that we're betting on, it's obviously the Lotte Giants, not the best team out there, obviously, but the LG Twins have proven they can win not only high-scoring games, but also low-scoring games, and they've been proven that over the past, half a week or so. So I've enjoyed that, and I'm going to go ahead and back them here.
Well, you'll be doing so without Roberto Ramos, who was out last night and is projected out for the weekend with a back issue, and that is a huge component of the Twins offense. I favor the Giants pitcher here. I give Park the edge over Cha. He's off his best start of the year, and his peripherals are simply better than Cha's. Cha, however, has pitched well in his last couple of starts. The Giants offense, as usual, struggling. They just don't win on the road. They've lost, I believe, 10 of their last 11 on the road, and most of the problems have been because they can't score runs. Twins offense gets compromised with the most dangerous hitter in the lineup out. So certainly this is a game where I think you can argue a case for the under with both pitchers in pretty good form right now. A huge offensive piece missing. Total is 9.5, mostly underjuiced. Pinnacle right now is at 9 with the over slightly juiced. You saw a pitcher's duel last night. Not as good a quality here as it was last night. I mean, this morning, those were two top-end KBO pitchers, not quite that strong here. But I would not argue against another play on the under. And I won this yesterday and haven't played it yet, but I am certainly considering it.
Did I go backwards here, Dave? I just saw my book here.
You're going backwards.
Sorry about that. That wasn't purposeful, that's for sure. Hanwha Eagles, Doosan Bears. We might as well keep things going. If that's okay with you.
Chance of a record here.
Yeah.
If the Eagles lose tonight, if the Eagles lose this game, they will establish a new all-time losing streak record in KBO. They've lost 18 in a row, all of them, right, by double figures. They actually scored 2 runs in the ninth inning to make things mildly interesting in this morning's game, but ended up losing 5-2. The Dinos, by the way, the Bears rather, continue to be amazing off a loss. 12-0 on the season now off a loss. But they're not off a loss here. It's just a gigantic line. You have a debuting pitcher for the Eagles. They've called up one of their minor leaguers. Who knows? I don't know anything about him.
It's a big call up. It's a big call up. He's going to save the day for them.
Yeah. This is where the pennant drive begins for the Hanwha Eagles, right? The good news for the Eagles is they get to face, I would say, the weakest of the Dinos starters. Yu's got, he's got a 4-1 record, and you look at 3.60. That's not bad, but you look beyond that, and the numbers really aren't very good. In fact, they kind of suck.
The Bears, the Bears,
For the Bears, I should say. 35 innings, 43 hits, 12 walks, and only 12 strikeouts.
Yeah.
That's not very good. So this is a guy who's really been helped by run support to be 4-1. If you look at it at those analytics, they're not good at all. This is a game where I think you can make a case for the over in this game. You got a first-time debuting guy facing a very dangerous lineup. The Dinos' bullpen is no good. It continues to be no good. It gave up a couple more runs last night. The Eagles' bullpen figures to be involved here. This should be a high-scoring game, even with the weak Eagle offense.
Yeah, it's tough for me, Dave, because I, looked over some stuff with you yesterday, and you could probably tell with my voice and the reason why I was asking you. And it's been usually I'm giving my opinions and we're both sharing thoughts, but that was the first time I ever really tossed it back at you and said, hey, what do you think of it? And of course I get a 5-2. Bell looked decent, but I think like you said, this is probably an opportunity here. It's just still tough for me to look at this number of 10.5, shaded too, not just even a pretty good number. But at the same time, like you said, going for that record. We've got a guy coming up from the minors. I don't care how good he is. Lack of experience to me typically means over. And, first of all, this team's just giving up runs left and right. Their BP has been horrible. And, we're not seeing a great guy for the Bears. So if there's ever an opportunity to do it, I think this would be a good opportunity to go over. Would you ever take a look at an over 3.5 Hanwha team total?
No.
Because Doosan is still
they've scored 100. They've scored 100 and I can't remember what is it? 103 runs or 107 runs in 30 games. And so they averaged 3.5. I guess you can make a case for it, but they've called up a bunch of minor leaguers who are, it appears, not as good offensively as the guy they replaced. If this that's a funny way of phrasing things, because the guys they replaced were terrible offensively, but these guys are even worse. So now I don't want to bet anything positive on the Eagles.
Yeah.
Anything. So I'm not betting them to win games. I'm not winning them to go over team totals. There's just nothing positive to say of the team. They're historically bad.
They're the worst team I've ever seen. And no, I don't blame you. I just thought I'd ask you that question just because
I'm basically avoiding their games because there's not much you can do with them now unless you want to go other team runs line and parlay it with something, or take the alternate runs line, a -2.5. And even that you're going to start laying juice at some point.
Oh, it's a ridiculous number right now on the -1.5 for them. That's for sure. And the team totals are even starting to get pretty shaded up there. So eventually we're going to be seeing like 7.5 team totals against this Hanwha team, and it's just horrific. We'll keep moving here. Shout out to Anthony, Raphael, Johnny, Daniel in the live chat box joining us. We appreciate you as always. Hit the like button and let us know you've liked the shows this week. This is I believe, third week of the KBO betting show. We're going to get into this now, the doubleheader. We have our second doubleheader here. And this is, of course, another game that I was involved in that ended up being the doubleheader. But this is actually one that I'm quite interested in. I'll throw things over to you, Dave, because I have more to say on the second game. But you can go ahead with your thoughts on the first one.
Well, there's no numbers that I can see, probably because they don't know who's pitching. I think it's going to be Despagne and Buchanan in the first game. I think they're going to flip the pitchers for the Lions, but that's just based on some stuff I'm reading. And while you can't bet with listed pitchers in this league, you still want to know who's pitching. I don't want to. I liked the Wiz yesterday. I didn't bet it, but I did like the Wiz, and part of the reasoning I mentioned if you listen to yesterday's show, watch yesterday's show, was that Despaigne was going on 4 days rest instead of 5, which I thought with his type of stuff where he throws hard two-seamers might actually favor him. Those guys have a tendency to get up in the strike zone when they're a little too fresh. Well, now he's pitching on 5 days rest after all, and I don't know that that's a positive. He did pitch very well against the Lions earlier this season, but his last 2 starts have been terrible. Buchanan has gotten much better of late. His last 3 starts have been really good. He's still not a guy who's going to ever blow away the opposition with his stuff, but he's pitching much better baseball right now. I think that'll be the first game matchup. If it is, then I'll probably want to bet the second game, and I'll probably want to be on the Wiz because I think you're going to have a pretty big edge in the second game with Bay on the mound for the Wiz, and he'll be going against the debuting Lions pitcher who they're calling up named Lee, and I don't know much about him except that he's never pitched in the major Korean baseball league, and I think that's going to be a distinct advantage for the Wiz in game 2. So I'm hoping it is Despaigne and Buchanan in game 1, in which case, once that game gets underway and there's a line posted for the second game, I will then bet the Wiz. And that'll be the selection I'm giving out on the show here because there's no way I'm going to be able to post or sell that at WagerTalk. It's probably not going to be available until sometime fairly late this evening. But that's what I will be doing with it personally.
All right. I'm going to probably look ahead and try and grab that exact same thing. Like you said, the lines aren't really available. But, it looks to me like it will be Buchanan and Despaigne. I think so. I mean, I'm on the same page as you. That's what I'm speculating, what people might are saying it will be. And if that's the case, I'm going to look at the first 5 innings under 5. What I can control is what I will be betting and knowing the 2 guys that are out there. Buchanan's looked good. I've actually I had some frustration with him early on, but he's really controlled things. He's really looked confident on the mound, and he's actually been striking out a good amount of batters. I'm looking forward to seeing Despaigne off some rest. Like you said, guys that throw heat, guys that, really, really, bring it are the ones that might need the rest. And I think they're going to be better off getting more, quality outings out of him with that. Obviously,
well, see, I disagree with that. He's a sinker ball pitcher. Okay. I don't want him on 5 days rest. I want him on less rest. There's something. This is from a big leaguer named Bob Stanley, who pitched for the Steamer Stanley, who pitched for the Red Sox for many years, was part of that disastrous Game 6 in 1986 against the Mets. But he talked about this, and he was a sinker ball pitcher. And one of the things he used to say was that he did not like a lot of rest between starts because he would have a tendency to get too strong and would get up in the strike zone. When he's a little more arm weary, pitching on 3 or 4 days rest, he was able to better control his two-seamer and keep it down in the strike zone. Despaigne he's not a 4-seam guy. He's a 2-seam guy. That's his best pitch. And I don't like him on 5 or 6 days rest. I think what they were trying to do here in moving him into the spot yesterday was get him on 4 days rest, which figures to be a strength for him. Unfortunately, they got rained out, and now he's back on 5 again.
If we look at it, though, his most successful game has been his first game where he pitched 8 innings, and then it was 5-5. And, in those 5, it was a little bit more traffic against him, a little more, runs. He got allowed 15 hits against Doosan in one of those outings. So I get what you're saying. My argument is just that with more rest, they'll have him out there for longer. I think he'll be able to produce better and be in better shape to stay out there for longer because I feel like when they have him in there, they want him out there as long as they can have him.
You want all your starting pitchers out there for as long as possible with the bullpens in this league.
And KT's bullpen.
Yeah, in particular, you really want to get 7 innings out of your starters. And, look, he's got a good chance to do that here. He's not facing a very dynamic offense. He did dominate them earlier in the season, 5 hits and just 1 run, I guess it was, might have been 2, but 1 was unearned in 6 innings. And as for Buchanan, he's really picked it up in his last few starts. I mean, he was scuffling big time, but his last 3 starts, he's gone 20 innings, 16 hits, only 1 run in that stretch. So he has clearly found his best form of late. It does figure to be a pitcher's duel, and with this being a doubleheader, I would guess that the 2 managers are probably going to extend the leash a little bit as far as trying to get as much as they possibly can out of the 2 starting pitchers.
And just kind of talking out loud here, Dave, we thinking out loud, we were talking about the correlated with Samsung doing well, and when they do well, it's going to be a lower scoring. So that might benefit a first 5 under. And we're just seeing the recent success that they have had when they've been successful. Looking at it from an odds perspective, looking at the card today, as much as I say I might like Despaigne and I was interested in backing them, I actually might be quite interested in looking at Samsung plus a half on the first 5 innings as well, because I think that they've been fighting. They've been battling in games. Their pitching has been good. They've been, getting some quality at bats. So, I think that's well worth it to grab them. But, I'm going to see if I can get involved a lot more in these games with first 5s, because, it's more if it being widely available. WagerTalk now offering these consensus lines. These games are getting out of hand sometimes in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and try and isolate sometimes in the start of things. I'm disappointed. It's hard to really kind of have some lines for the second game. Yeah. I want to get your thoughts before we head out, though, about obviously we're talking about this team, great under team as well with Samsung and KT, obviously a pretty rough bullpen. But the theory didn't work out last time with the second half of the doubleheader. But how do you feel about taking a possible overlook in the second game?
No, I'm doing what I said when we first started talking. I'm going to wait for the line of the second game. If it's Bay versus Lee, I'm taking the Wiz in the game. He's off his best start of the season. He's pitched much better than his numbers are just solid. Okay, I mean he's going to walk guys, but he's a good pitcher in this league, and he's off his best start of the year, by the way. He's really good in his last start. I think go with 8 innings, 3 hits, no runs. I want him against the debuting guy, so I'm just going to have to wait and hope that's the second game matchup. And once a line shows up, I'll bet it. Again, I won't be posting that at WagerTalk because of the hour. It's going to probably be around midnight before we know what's going on. I might be exaggerating by an hour, but not much. So I only have one play posted today at WagerTalk. That's on a total, and you can get that right now for $9 at WagerTalk.com. Okay,
good stuff. And yeah, I mean, betting against inexperienced pitchers has been pretty good so far, Dave. So, got a good pitcher in your favor. Hopefully, we got some pretty inexperienced pitcher as well. Dave got a pickup right now. We got some golf going. Both of us are involved in golf action this weekend. I got some UFC stuff for tomorrow night. It's not my favorite UFC card. Those of you that know me with UFC, very low volume. Picking my spots, Dave. I don't really like to go too heavy with it. A couple best bets, 1 or 2 for each card. They've been pretty good so far. So anybody interested in that for a pretty good price, head over to WagerTalk.com. Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to mention that if you watch the golf show, our debuting golf show that we did this week, my outright was Jordan Spieth. So I kind of like what I was seeing through 2 rounds on a 42-1 shot. The matchups, looks like I'm absolutely dead in one. And the other 4, who knows? They're all close. So hopefully I'll do okay with the matchups. Completely whiffed on the Russell Knox versus Bubba Watson match. I'm going to lose that by like 30 strokes. But it only counts as 1 loss, fortunately.
Yeah. I'm happy it's not more of a loss based off how bad it is, Well,
we're out of that one real quick. I mean, Russell Knox was, I guess, the second worst player on the course yesterday, and Bubba's really playing well
today as well.
Yeah. He's having a good tournament, so I have no problem getting blown out in a matchup. Want to win the close ones.
Definitely. Good luck with your future wager, Dave. Good luck with your KBO bets, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.